Rafa Nadal is the 2019 U.S. Open champion, and 3 things have changed or are worthy of taking note. 1, there is a next-gen guy who is a threat to the big 3 now, and Danny Medvedev. He's proven that he is legit. 2, Nadal has 19 majors. He's got a nice cushion ahead of Djokovic, who's injured still. And he's only 1 French Open away from tying Roger Federer with 20 majors. The third thing we should talk about, the third thing after yesterday that we have to think about, with Federer having the back issue, Djokovic having the shoulder issue, how will they respond? How much do they play for the rest of the year? Do they try to lock down some points, in Djokovic's case, stay ahead of Nadal in the rankings? In Federer's case, catch up to Nadal in the rankings and get close? Or is there going to be more focus put on getting the body healthy, so that next year they can strike where it matters most? We all know the best way for Djokovic or Federer to respond to Nadal's win is, of course, to win the Australian Open in January 2020. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we talk about those 3 things that I'm thinking about the day after the U.S. Open final. We go through the final itself and talk about what happened in the match. Why did Medvedev almost lose in straight sets? Why did he come back and almost win in 5? We take a listen to what the players had to say themselves in the press conferences after the match was over, and a little bit more on top of that. Welcome to the show. I am Matt Bradshaw. This is Coffee Break Tennis, the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world. El Mundo, as we'll all be saying, when Rafa Nadal rules tennis with the most titles. Most Grand Slam titles. That's a joke. But it's not a joke. He is 1 away from Roger Federer. That is no joke. Will he have the most? I think Rafa said it the best in his press conference. In fact, let's skip ahead to something I was going to do later in the show. Let's play this because I was really interested to hear the things Nadal said in his presser. Take a listen to this. 9 minutes in, he's asked some kind of question saying, will you adapt your game so that you can play longer like Federer? And he says, will you be here in 3-4 years like Roger Federer?
Your games according to age, and could you imagine to be out there in 3 or 4 years like Roger here still?
I don't think about that. I just think about shorter period of time. You can't predict what's going on in this life, no? But this world and this life changes like this, and you need to be prepared for accept everything. So today is a day to enjoy. I did this during all my career. If not, I will not be able to be where I am today with all the injuries that I had. I need to adapt my game to my problems and to my goals, because on the way you lose things that you have it. So when you lose things, you need to add another things to keep being competitive.
In this crazy world, we can't predict what will happen. Things change like that, said Rafa Nadal. And he is exactly right. Now, this quote can kind of help us all understand the way Rafa plays, point by point, so focused in the present moment. I'm going to win this point. Because Rafa acknowledges there, it's the only thing we can control. We can never prepare or try to guess what's going to happen in the future, so we have to make the most of right now. How many people out there thought Novak Djokovic would win the U.S. Open no matter what, and no one had a chance? Maybe Nadal had a chance, and Federer, if he couldn't beat him at Wimbledon, he had 0 chance to beat Djokovic at the U.S. Open. And then something happened that none of us could have prepared for. Djokovic himself, you could see it in how frustrated he was throughout the tournament. The whole time, he knew things weren't right. He was upset about it. He had the moment where he went off on the fan on the practice court, and he went and said, "I'll find you. I'll come find you." And do what to him? Buy him a drink, of course. And what he told the media later about that. Rafa, again, maybe the best attitude of all big 3. Djokovic may be the worst. Djokovic has had the most stuff to deal with, though. He's had the least amount of love from the crowd. So it's going to be harder for him to deal with things mentally, emotionally. There's a lot more going on for these guys than just playing the game. Roger Federer, on the other hand, I think he handles things quite well. I'd put him at second best with his whole mental approach to everything. But I think we've seen enough occasions, not necessarily Roger Federer choking. You can't say a guy with 20 majors chokes, but he thinks a little too much at times. Maybe he overthinks. Maybe he worries a little. Rafa tends to accept where he is, do this, do that, pull on his pants, take a little too long, and sometimes lose your first serve with the serve clock there at the U.S. Open. But then he regroups, and he does his very best, and he's very happy with it. Let's play one more clip from the Rafa press conference. Take a listen to this. 7 minutes into the press conference, Rafa says something along the lines of, I'd love to finish with the most, but if I don't, no big deal.
I feel honored to be part of this battle. But I repeat the same. No, you can't be all day looking next to you about if one having more or one having a little bit less, because you will be frustrated. And all the things that I achieved in my career are much more than what I ever thought and what I ever dreamed. So I would love to be the one who have more, yes, but I will not. I really believe that I will not be happier or less happy if that happens or not happen. What gives you the happiness is the personal satisfaction that you give it your best, and in that way, I am very, very calm. I'm very pleased with myself.
I'm very pleased with myself in that way. Now, we all know Rafa really, really would like to finish with the most. I talked about this in the finals preview video before. Rafa has this belief, and it's a good one to have, that if you think too much about what somebody else has or how close they are to taking what you have or your record or whatever, you're never going to be happy with what you've done. Rafa taking the perfect approach for a tennis player, saying, I can only be happy and knowing that I've done my very best and I've tried as hard as I can. Mentally toughest tennis player of all time. What is that? How do you spell that? What's the GOAT? What's the GOAT of that? The M-tote. Rafa, maybe not the GOAT, but definitely the M-tote. Mentally toughest of all time. And finally, if there's any wonder in your head, like Rafa said, if he doesn't finish with the most, he's okay with that. He's happy knowing that he's given it his all and he's had a great career and he's done very well. But his goal is to finish with the most. And this is what you know. Take a listen 10 minutes into the press conference. Take a listen to what Rafa says when they ask him, hey, Rafa, you got a lot of points now after winning the U.S. Open. Are you going to play more in the rest of the season to take the #1 ranking? You have a chance to do it again.
A very impressive accomplishment, and something that it does is it gives you an advantage looking ahead for the rest of the year at year-end #1, which would be the 5th time.
I don't compete for it, I just do my way. If I am able to be #1, doing my way, great. But I always say it the same. Today is not my main goal. Of course, it's great to be in that fight, but for me personally, it's not really a fight. I just try to be competitive the weeks that I need to compete, or the weeks that I want to compete. With my age and with my goals, I cannot lose energy or time to follow the #1. I need to think about. I need to think about my career in a different way. For me, my main goal is play as long as possible and being competitive. And sometimes if you really want to follow the #1, maybe you're going to lose years of your career.
With my age and my goals, I cannot afford to lose energy chasing #1. He said some people have done it, and it cost them. He's talking about Andy Murray. Remember Andy Murray, what was that? The fall, the end of 2016, I believe, where Andy Murray threw everything he had in the rest of the season, played everywhere, and now he's taken some time off his career, it looks like. Maybe he's all done with his career. By the way, I did get a report from a spy, a coffee break tennis fan, was actually in Mallorca watching Andy Murray play there, and he said, Murray had some moments, but then it didn't take very long to where he was with the trainer for most of the match. He ends up losing, and he's got some kind of problem with it. What he said looked like the upper leg, could be hip, I don't know, but doesn't look great for Andy Murray over there. That's what I heard from my spy, at least. But Rafa Nadal made it very clear, chasing #1, not a big deal. He's got other goals. What are his other goals? What did he say? Something kind of like, I want to be able to play well at the times that I want to play. Well, what do you think those times are? The majors, especially the French Open. Priority #1 because that's where he picks up majors almost guaranteed. And then the other 3, he's going to do his best because he can. If you pick up any more, it's gravy. This is a good year. Rafa picking up 2, a very good year. So that was my #2 thing for today's show. Rafa is in position with 19 majors now, and his attitude, his plan, his goals, we know it. Forget #1. You guys can have that. I'm going for the most majors. We all know that's the record that people respect the most. That's the GOAT measuring stick. Rafa's there, and he's ready to get more. That's what he's going to do. He knows his time isn't unlimited. He knows that he could have injuries in the future that could ruin everything. So he's just going to do what he can right now, and he's probably going to win at least a couple more majors. How will Djokovic and Federer respond? Well, Djokovic, he needs to win about 5 more majors. Federer, if he can just win one, he just needs one Wimbledon or an Australian Open. If he can just win one, he's got a chance. He really needed that win over Djokovic. That would have, and it's all over the place. I have an article here with, I believe it's this Forbes.com. I believe it's Renee Stubbs. She says, obviously it all comes down to injuries. If Novak stays healthy, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind he'll reach that. I mean, he'll get at least 5 more years of competitive tennis. There's 4 majors a year. I mean, he's going to get tons of majors. I felt that if Roger won Wimbledon, it might have been possible that Roger would have stayed on top. And she talks about how it would have been 21, 18, 15, but instead it's 2018, 16. Now it's 2019, 16. The major counts. I mean, she's got a point. It would have made a big difference. It would have made it almost out of reach. You saw how tough it was for Rafa to win this. I knew that Medvedev had dangers. There's ways Medvedev could hurt Rafa with all of his weapons. I didn't think he was ready at this stage of his career to do it yet. I was ultimately right, but he came a lot closer than I thought he would. I was thinking it would be more like a 4-set match where he gets 1. A lot of people said it's going to be Rafa in 3. I knew that was always possible, but if Medvedev did the right things, he could easily get 1 set. So I was expecting 4. You better believe it's only going to get tougher from here for Rafa to win somewhere outside of the French. I think he's still a lock at the French Open next year. The year after that, I don't know. That's a lot. We're talking about a year and a half from today. That's a lot more wear and tear on the body for Rafa. It's tough to predict that far out ahead. So Roger, if he can just pick up 1 more, that's going to be pretty tough for Novak and Rafa as well to surpass him. But I do think Roger can do it, and you better believe that Djokovic is going to be coming right back, and he's going to have chances to win too. Let's go to my number 1 thing. So we're going very out of order, but 2 and 3, Nadal's in position to do it. He wants to do it. He doesn't care about number 1. He cares about the most majors. Number 3, Djokovic and Federer. There's a plan ahead of them. Federer, Operation Win 1 more. Aussie Open and Wimbledon are going to be your main targets. If you're Team Federer, you put everything you have into winning the Aussie Open and Wimbledon. The number 1 thing, though, is we have a new guy. Now, I wrote down in my notes here, outside of Del Potro, Andy Murray, Stanislav the Manislav Wawrinka, we haven't seen anyone in the last 10 years. Raonic made a Wimbledon final. Looked like maybe if he works on his game, he could treble the big 3. Dominic Thiem, and again, Raonic was 25, 26 when that happened, the 2016 Wimbledon final. Dominic Thiem, about the same age when he first made last year's French Open final. But you never felt like Raonic was going to beat those guys in the final. You just thought, okay, he's good enough to get to a final and lose to a big 3 type guy or a big 4 counting Murray back then. Same with Dominic Thiem. You feel like maybe he'd win the French Open final against Djokovic or Federer, but he ain't going to beat Rafa in the French Open final. Well, now we have a guy in Medvedev, and we also have Tsitsipas, and that's my point about Medvedev. We have a guy in Medvedev now who legitimately could beat, I'd say, any of the big 3. Djokovic, Federer, or Nadal. He proved to us that he has what it takes to beat anyone in the world at a major in best of 5. Now, can he repeat? He needs to have more results. Otherwise, he's Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas proved to us he's to be taken more seriously than, say, an Alexander Sasha Zverev. When he beat Roger at the Australian Open early this year in January, Tsitsipas proved to us, okay, he's a legitimate next-gen threat. And as he gets older, he can become even more dangerous for these guys as they get older and they're later into their 30s, the big 3. But what happened with Tsitsipas? He got spanked by Nadal a couple rounds later. That hurt his case. That hurt him in all of our eyes. But just a little, still riding the high. And he has some other good results, beating Rafa on clay, best of 3. But still, things like that built him back up in front of all of us. Losing first round at Wimbledon and the US Open, that brought him way down. Same thing will happen to Medvedev. Right now, everyone's going to say, wow, Medvedev, he's legit. He's a big star now. He has the potential to have a great career. Play this from the Rafa Nadal presser. They asked, what do you think about Medvedev?
He's 23. He's 23. The year that he's having is just very impressive. And he has a great future in front. I really believe that, of course, he will be able to win Grand Slams, a couple of them. In this life, it's impossible to predict the future, but his career looks very, very well.
He'll win a couple, just 2. But he's legitimate. If he starts having some really bad results like we've seen with Tsitsipas, you can become Dimitrov before you know it. Poor Dimitrov, who had to start using his grandmother's racket. Take a look at that thing. Had to use his grandmother's racket just to hang in this great sport, tennis. We're running out of time pretty quick here. Let me just go through some of my match notes, and that's it for today. Take a quick listen to this. This is Medvedev. If you noticed, him and Nadal hug after the match is over. Like, did they even do a handshake at the net, or did one of them jump over? I must have been writing a tweet. I think I was begrudgingly writing my congratulations, Rafa Nadal on 19 titles tweet when they would have had the handshake. Maybe one of them jumped over the net or something, but they were hugging at one point, and Medvedev said something to Rafa that got Rafa to crack up and laugh. Pretty loud, pretty good. A real, genuine laugh. You could see it. And they asked him, what did you say? Take a listen.
What words did you share with Rafa at the end, at the net?
Yeah, I don't remember everything because, well, I congratulated him. He said that congrats to me for my week and that I'm an amazing player. I basically said that he's also an amazing player. And then I said that what I think is they have a great contest between three of them. And I wish him luck to be one of the three, to be better. Yeah.
I knew it, because Medvedev said some months ago, we reported it right here on this show, Coffee Break Tennis. We said Medvedev always rooted against Roger Federer. He didn't like Federer, didn't want him to win when he was a young boy, watching all the great matches Roger and Rafa had. So he said in that question, in a polite way, like, oh, I talked about the race you're in, what a great thing, and good luck there. You know, he basically said, I hope you beat the heck out of Roger in the GOAT race. Something like that. Something not as nice sounding. Maybe a cuss word was in there. You know it. Because Rafa had a good hearty laugh, and I don't blame him. All right, going to the match really quick. Some of my match notes here. Nadal came out serving bad. Just like we saw with Djokovic in the Australian Open this year, Rafa, more aggressive throughout the tournament. As soon as he came to Djokovic, hit some stumbles, not feeling as good, maybe a little nervous or something. Pretty bad serving to start off against Medvedev. Not his best in the rallies either. Medvedev not able to take advantage. The ball Medvedev hit, and they were talking a lot, the commentators, Patty Mack, Johnny Mack, Chris Fowler, Killer Cahill, all of them. The whole gang was there on ESPN. They spent a lot of time early on in the broadcast talking about, wow, Medvedev is really playing like he's going to outgrind Rafa, which is crazy. Is basically the gist of what they were saying. He's hanging so far back. He's doing a lot of running. He's probably going to run out of gas. And then halfway into the match, kind of crazy thing is they're saying it looks like Medvedev is going to outgrind Rafa Nadal, which you would never, ever expect to hear that. But Medvedev, plenty of energy. In fact, take a listen to what Medvedev said in his press conference. This is Medvedev talking about how, and you got to admire these guys, even a Djokovic. If you don't like Djokovic, these guys have devoted their whole lives to tennis. I mean, there's something to be said for that. Yes, the rewards are great. They're going to make a lot of money. They're going to have a fun life, but they're doing a lot of work. They're living a very different life than you and me and 90% of the world. And you can't really compare them to other athletes because other sports, you can be less good, right? You don't have to win as much, and you can make a ton of money. In tennis, you got to really be one of the top players. If you're 200 in the world, you're like struggling financially. If you're 100 in the world, you're doing okay, but you're not doing as well as the 100 ranked world golfer or baseball player or American football player, NFL, or football, soccer player. So you got to admire these guys to some extent, and you hear Medvedev saying that in this clip.
I work a lot physically, especially, as I said, last 2.5 years when I dedicated my life to tennis, when I'm on the, let's say, training camp in France where I practice. My coaches, they kill me physically to be ready for such kind of tournaments, such kind of matches, such kind of summer, and I can be proud of my physical abilities this summer.
Trainers kill me to prepare me for moments like that. And he was able to hang for a long time. I mean, only in the fifth set did he really start to look like he was like really actually running out of gas and was affecting his game. The problem early in the match for Medvedev was what Patrick McEnroe was spending a lot of time talking about. They did a great job highlighting this. In the backhand corner, Medvedev, whenever he had a short ball, he would kind of just roll his cross-court backhand. I shouldn't say roll because he's hitting it flat. It's not like he's pushing it. He's hitting it well. He was hitting forehands and backhands from far back in the court, flat and deep, well enough to treble most guys on the ATP Tour. 90% of the pro tennis players are going to have trouble with that ball, especially when you just hit it fairly deep, cross court with a safe angle, safe target. That's going to work against most players because you're going after their backhand and giving them a deep, low, flat ball. For Rafa, that's his forehand side, so it's not really going to hurt him. I've heard some people out there say, well, Medvedev was not dealing with the high spin of Rafa. That's not the case at all. That's totally wrong. That's a misread of the match. Medvedev's one of these taller guys, so the high bounce from Rafa, and we all heard from Federer, this is kind of a dead court, so the bounce is not even as high as it usually gets. It's higher than other players, of course, but it's not like playing Rafa on clay, and even then, these taller guys, like Robin Soderling, one of the two people to beat Rafa on clay, these taller guys like Medvedev, that high bounce ball doesn't bother them as much. The biggest issue was his ball didn't do enough to hurt Rafa. Eventually in the rally, it's not like Medvedev would get tired or completely out of position. He moves great, and he showed us all that he has great endurance and can hang for a long time, 5-hour match. The problem was eventually he would just not hit a ball clean enough. It wouldn't be quite as deep, and Rafa would move in and hurt him, especially when Rafa would leave something a little short where Medvedev had a real chance to move in and finish the point. And as they showed, Patrick McEnroe showed this multiple times, the cross court or the backhand up the line, he just didn't hit it the way you would see Djokovic do it, the way that would truly bother Rafa, really hurt Rafa in the rally. It was his standard ball. His standard ball is very good against most players, Medvedev, but not quite enough against Rafa. What we saw later in the match was Rafa started playing better, but he still wasn't at his very best throughout this entire match. He had lots of great moments. But Medvedev, he really started going after his shots, and it kind of felt like you're watching Djokovic, the way Medvedev would rip some backhands up the line. A big moment in the match for me. Let's see, I got a lot of match notes here, but I want to get out of here soon, so let's try to get through this quick. A big moment for the match for me is in the fourth set. Medvedev staying back the whole match. That's how he wanted to play. I'm sure with his ball, it's so flat that if you really move in and take balls a lot earlier, it's going to be a little harder for him to time it and not hit it long because there's not as much margin. It's not as whippy as the Rafa stroke. It's more of a straight line. It doesn't get as high over the net. You might start worrying, I'm going to hit him in the net or I'm going to hit him long or wide if I start taking these balls a lot earlier. So that I understand that, but I still felt like, why isn't Medvedev stepping in on the the left-hand slice serve that cuts away this way from your backhand on the left side of the court? If you're Medvedev, you're lined up on the left side to return ad court. Nadal constantly hit this cutting slice serve. We all know he's got this lefty swinger serve. And I wondered, why is Medvedev returning it so far back? Commentators were saying the same thing. Why isn't he moving in closer, stepping to his left more, and forcing Nadal to not hit that serve anymore? And then to finish the fourth set, from like the freaking wall, the fence, Medvedev hits a two-hand. It almost is like around the net post. The angle is so dramatic. Two-hand backhand up the line, catches the back corner for a winner on set point to force a fifth set. Medvedev, very stubborn player, really going to play his way, kind of like what you'd see with a Joker or Federer. I mean, the big three. This is a big three characteristic. You don't see this from next-gen guys, so pretty cool to see that. Tsitsipas is another person who comes to mind. He kind of has that in him as well, but Medvedev has jumped ahead of him and everyone else now. So that's what it took to win. And Medvedev, just like we saw in Cincinnati with Djokovic, Medvedev had the desire to say, all right, I'm losing this way. Let's change it up. Let's go for more. And not only, it's one thing to say, that's what I'm going to do. We've seen tons of players do this over the years and not be able to crack through the big three. But to actually be able to pull it off, to hang in there, to have the endurance to hang around, to have the bravery to go for the shots, and then to execute the shots and make them, incredible. But here's where it all fell apart. Finally, I write in my match notes, Meds makes too many mistakes on the big points. Too many bad drop shots, right? A lot of bad drop shots. Too many opportunities created with a good ground stroke where he didn't move in and do the right thing right away. Perfect example, 2 break points up, 1-0 in the fifth. He would have been up 2-0 serving for a 3-0 lead in the fifth set. Nadal would have been toast if that happened. Advantage Nadal in this game. And so we go to add in Nadal when he has a chance after he saves the 2 break points. He hits not the greatest serve, and Medvedev just kind of pushes this backhand up the line. It's so short, not enough on it, that Nadal just scoots around his own backhand, hits that lefty inside-out forehand ripper, and Medvedev sprinting after it, trying to do his little squash shot forehand thing. It's over. Opportunity gone. At 2-all, serving advantage Nadal. This is bad for Medvedev. He can't go down the break here. He plays a strong point. He eventually, I can't remember a forehand or backhand, but he hits a great ball and gets a short ball in the middle of the court. He runs up, and then he just kind of does this like pushy. It's like a forehand slice or a volley. The ball bounces, so it's not a true volley, but he just kind of shovels the ball. It's kind of, Nadal runs up there and smacks it away for a winner right away. I saw too many points like that, and often on big points that Medvedev really needed to win. Too many points at the net where he just wasn't able to finish it. He wasn't sure at times. To me, it seemed like he wasn't sure if he should just go up and volley it, or if he should try to hit some kind of tricky angle or drop shot or try to hit it full on. He looked a little uncomfortable in the transition games. I mean, he's got good hands. He's only going to get better at this. Hit the music because I'm ready to get out of here. Medvedev has proven to all of us that he's the real deal. He's got the serve. He's got the movement. He's got the heart, the fight, the spirit. He's got the ground strokes. He's got the hands and the ability, and as he gets better at transitioning, as he gets better at knowing what's the right shot, when to move in, when to hang back, as he gets better at sorting out his game and how it works when you go up against the best games around, like Rafa Nadal's game, Djokovic Federer, he's just going to get better and better. So time is ticking for the big three. Nadal knows it. He seems to be embracing it the most of the big three, and it's looking good for him right now. But one thing I will say, Nadal, he served so well in this tournament, but when he got to the final, lots of poor serving. Federer, that's one big difference between him and Djokovic and Nadal. We know Federer is going to come up with the great serves. He's going to make those great serves in the biggest moments. He did it against Djokovic at Wimbledon. He's got to get healthy because with the Australian Open coming up, it is the fastest of the four majors, faster than Wimbledon, and it has a pretty low bounce there as well. With the Australian Open coming up, Roger Federer has a chance to win quick points, utilize the aggressive serving, and put some major pressure on Nadal and Djokovic if he can get to 21. This is an exciting time to be a tennis fan. Comment below what you think of the whole thing. I'm very curious. We will be back later this week with another show, and we'll talk a little bit about what all of you guys out there think about this race. I'm sure a lot of Fed fans think it's all over. See ya!